joined by Bradley, who is an Air Force Maritime Patrol and Response Officer. Thank you so much for joining us today.
It's good to be here.
So, can you tell us what that means? What is your role and what do you do?
So, my job title is Tactical Coordinator. So we abbreviate that to TACO, so we abbreviate everything in the military. But essentially what I do is I sit in the back of the P8 Poseidon, which is Australia's Maritime Patrol and Response capability. And I'm responsible for controlling the sensors, controlling all the weapon systems down the back of the aircraft. So we've got about 10 people that fly in the aircraft. So we've got pilots, we've got sensor operators, and then we've got a couple of MPRO, so Maritime Patrol and Response Officers. And we all kind of work together to do a mission.
There are so many things behind the scenes that you just don't know exist within the Air Force. Like, that is such a cool job. Like, how did you hear about this and what inspired you to choose a career in the Air Force?
So it was one of those things where one of the Defence Force recruiters came to my high school in Year 9, and we're all sitting in the library, and this gentleman kind of discussed what he did in defence, and kind of what really appealed to me was the fact that you get to use some like cool technology. You get to go like all around Australia, all around the globe. And when you're not like busy doing that stuff, you have quite a good work-life balance. So that's kind of where it first like piqued my interest, like joining defence. And from there, I'm like, oh, okay. Do I want to join, I know I want to join defence. Do I join Navy, Army or Air Force? And I pretty much just jumped on the website. And yeah, it took me days and days to go through like all the job profiles. And I finally picked like a couple out. I'm like, hey, I'm interested in these things. I hit up Defence Force Recruiting, got some more information. And that's kind of where I landed in choosing the RAF. And then I'm like, hey, Air Combat Officer is what it used to be called. Now it's called Maritime Patrol and Response Officer. I'm like, hey, this sounds pretty cool. I wouldn't mind putting my hand up for it.
Awesome. So that was it. And look, the DFR website is, it's got a lot of information on there. It's really, really cool. But I guess it's really awesome to hear from people as well. Like you heard from someone who came and visited your school. It's really nice to talk to someone who's in the industry and can explain to you all of the really cool things that are available to you. So yeah, that's really cool. So what was the process like then from there for joining? What training did you complete and what was sort of all of that like?
So it's quite a long process. So I'll split it up into two different phases. So before I joined and then once I was in. So before I joined, I went through, and the first port of call that you make with Defence Force Recruiting is you go in and you do a U session. And that's where you go in and it's about a day or so and you answer a heap of questions. It's kind of like a bit of an interview, like a screening interview on, hey, these are the job profiles that are suited to you. This is might be what you want to have a look at pursuing. So I did that and pretty much came back that, hey, you're pretty much suited for every role in defence. I'm like, okay, sweet. And then from there you go through and you're like, all right, I'm interested in these few roles. You go in and you do what we call like an interview day. So they sit there and it takes about 6 hours. You do a heap of like maths tests, a couple of English tests, like spatial awareness, like computer game tests. So this is all on the computer, and I'm like, hey, this is pretty cool, pretty challenging. And if you successfully get through that, then you can go through and go through like your officer selection board, which is down in Canberra, and that takes about 3 to 4 days, and that's a lot more in depth. So you're working with your peers, so like your candidates, and if you're successful enough to get through that, then you potentially get an offer to join the military. So obviously got the offer, got very lucky, and went to the Australian Defence Force Academy down in Canberra, studied there for 3 years. Studied a Bachelor of Science. It was quite interesting. And then from there graduated in 2014 and then went down to East Sale and attended what we call AMTS, so the Mission Training School. And what they do is they teach you all like the job specific training. So through ADFA, you do all your officer type training. Through mission training school in East Sale, you do all your job specific stuff. So down in Sale, there's like 3 different kind of routes you can go down. So the 3 for me were either air battle manager, so sitting in the back of the wedge tails, weapons systems officer, so sitting in the back of the Super Hornets, and MPRO, so Maritime Patrol and Response Officer, so sitting in the back of the P8. And I thought I was pretty spoiled for choice. I'm like, hey, I wouldn't mind like either of these 3 here. So I'm like, all right, I'm in a good position right now. I just got to focus on getting through course. And then, graduated, went Maritime Patrol and Response Officer. Then you go and do your operational conversion, which is down here in Adelaide. And then you, convert onto your P8.
Wow.
That's what I've been doing the last couple of years.
So how many years was that all up then?
Oh, so I joined in like 2013.
Okay. Yeah. Right. And so did you have any prior experience before joining the Air Force?
I had absolutely zero.
Wow.
Yep. So I know that like going through, like a lot of my peers have done cadets, and you can absolutely see how that would help out through the process. But I think for the right candidates, it's definitely not essential. It's only something that's kind of going to like help you along the way.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So what is an average day in the life like for you as a Maritime Patrol and Response Officer? What do you sort of do on a day-to-day basis?
So I've actually had a pretty interesting week so far. Okay. So on Monday, I did some practice air-to-air refueling. It's a new capability we're exploring. On Tuesday, what we did was we did a training flight just off the south of Kangaroo Island, so about half an hour south of Adelaide. And what we practiced was a little bit of anti-submarine warfare, which is our primary role down here at 11 Squadron, operating the P8. So that day kind of looked like us coming in at 8 o'clock, and what we do is we go through mission planning and we discuss a lot of safety considerations with the flight, and then we discuss like, hey, these are the objectives that we want to tick off in this flight, the learning objectives. And then we kind of go through like a bit of a run plan. Like, hey, we're gonna take off. We're gonna do this at this time. We're gonna do this at this time. And we pretty much just flew for 5 hours, and it was a great time. Got a lot of great learning experience out of it. And then landed, debriefed, and then went home.
Oh.
But usually, like, that's kind of like your typical week. So you might get a flight in. Maybe like jumping in the simulator or something like that for a couple of hours. But like when you're not doing that, it's like going to the gym, keeping fit, just doing a lot of background admin. So keeps it interesting.
Totally. Yeah. I mean, especially right now, not many people are flying. We all still will be flying. At least you've been able to get in an aircraft and fly around. How good's that?
Absolutely. It's been awesome.
And so what would you say you love most about your job, or do you have any career highlights so far?
I have a lot. So the platform itself, I think it's the most versatile platform in defence. So we usually conduct about like primarily 3 or 4 different roles. So search and rescue, anti-submarine warfare, a lot of humanitarian assistance, and a lot of intelligence and surveillance. So we're a great jack of all trades platform.
Yeah.
So without delving into the operations that I've done too much, I've done like search and rescue off the coast of Perth. I've flown missions like through the East China Sea, the South China Sea. We've flown support over Philippines, and probably like one of the more like novelty cool ones is like we've done a lot of like border patrol, and that kind of involves like a little bit of coastal flying around Australia, and the platform can go down to like a couple of 100 foot above water. So I've been fortunate enough to see a lot of Australia's coastlines going 300 knots at 200 foot above the water. So it's been very exciting.
Stop it! You have the best job ever. I'm sorry. That is Sounds like so much fun. Like, what a really cool experience you've had. This definitely sounds like a job these high school students should be looking up as soon as this interview's over. That's for sure. I'm sorry, but it sounds like so fun.
I was just going to say, obviously had like a lot of career highlights there. But I think one of the most interesting things is just like, you're always going and like doing something different. So like one of the big things that like drew me to it as like a high school student was it's kind of like a little bit of a computer game, except it's on a world scale. And I thought like that was definitely one of the draw cards. Like, this is like really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. So what advice would you give to those wanting to pursue a career in the Air Force? What would you say to the students out there who are listening right now?
So what I'd do is I'd kind of do something similar to what I did, right? I'd go in, I'd talk to people, I'd study like what kind of roles you might think you're interested in. Obviously, you can get like a decent amount of information from Defence Force recruiting and the websites, but there's only like so much you can actually draw out of the website. I think the best thing for someone like in high school or someone wanting to join Defence would be to get in contact with DFR and try and like just pick their brain, like ask questions, try and get a point of contact of someone who's like already in that role that you're interested in. So like what I did going through the joining process, I got in contact with one of the air battle managers. So one of the people who sit in the back of the wedge tails. And I went and like met up with them and had coffee for a day, and I just picked their brains about like I literally asked them like 100 questions. They must have been so sick of me. But it was kind of like I could relate to this person. Yeah. I'm kind of like, hey, like your job sounds awesome. I kind of idolize you a little bit. I'm like, this is like kind of where I want to be in about 5 to 10 years time. So I think reaching out and like talking to people in the role is definitely a great step.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, after this interview, you might have a few students wanting to reach out to yourself, Bradley, about this. You've definitely sold it to me. So if students are listening and they would like to find out more information, where should they go? Where should they start?
So I think the first point of call for anyone wanting to join the military has to either be DFR, either calling up, looking at the website, or like just researching like what kind of jobs are out there, and having a look at like what really appeals to them. I think DFR really is like your one-stop shop for, I guess, like your first couple of steps in like deciding like what you're interested in and whether you want to join. I think there's some other avenues out there that high school students probably don't always consider. So I think cadets, like they usually are made up of quite a lot of reservists, and those reservists usually are like 20, 30 years of experience. So even if like you just head down to like your local cadets, it'd be very easy to like get in contact with members of defence. I guess pick their brain similar to what I did.
Yeah.
And I think the last kind of avenue is don't discount like your friends and your family, like, and those kind of connections. Like you never know, like you might have an uncle that was in defence like I did, or like a friend of a friend. So I guess if you kind of reach out and you're open with your family and friends about, hey, I'm interested in this job role, you never know, like you might be like, oh, my uncle's in or my auntie's in. So
yeah, absolutely. No, that's awesome advice there, Bradley. And we really appreciate your time today. And thank you for telling us about your super cool job.
You're more than welcome. I'm standing by for questions.
Thanks so much.
Thank you.